The Tree of Knowledge marks the heart of the Federation University's Mount Helen campus in Ballarat. Standing tall alongside it is Aboriginal woman Katrina Beer. She has a difficult story to tell. Tonight you'll hear from other women determined to tell their stories too.
When this all happened for me, people started coming to me and saying, "Me too. It's relevant. Now's the time to tell your story." I'm Katrina Beer. I'm a Watchabolic woman from the Wimmera Mallee region. I'm here to tell my story.
Katrina's story goes back to 2003, when she was chasing her dream job of becoming an Aboriginal liaison officer. That brought her into contact with a prominent Ballarat identity, Wayne Muir.
It is estimated that the Australian governments across this country spend approximately $3.5 billion.
He was somebody that I actually looked up to.
Wayne Muir's career has spanned prominent positions in education and justice services for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. Now the CEO of the Victorian Aboriginal Legal Service and its Tasmanian equivalent, he's one of the most powerful Indigenous leaders in Australia.
To put young people into a prison which was designed for the most hardened criminals in the state of Victoria is disgusting.
In April 2003, Wayne Muir invited Katrina Beer to the office he then had on this campus.
As soon as I walked through the door, he asked me, did I come out to do him a favour? And I'm like, something's not right here. Depends on what it is what I said. And he said, would you give me a head job? And I laughed because I thought he was joking, like I'm just like, what? Are you serious? And then I said no, and the room was starting to spin for me. I felt really intimidated. I felt trapped. I tried to kind of move myself towards the door as quick as I could, and he stopped me. He stopped the door from opening before I could get out, and he warned me. He said not to tell anyone this conversation didn't happen. I felt really vulnerable. So I didn't sleep for 3 nights. I was the main income earner in my family, and we had a mortgage and a daughter, so I couldn't just quit my job.
Katrina complained to a counsellor and a work colleague.
She just didn't believe me that it happened the way that I'd said that it happened. And again, that's because of the position that Wayne held, not just within the university, but his reputation within the community as well, and in the public eye as well. So that was really, really hard.
Did it change the way you view the world?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I lost trust in everyone.
Hello?
Determined to be believed, Katrina rang Wayne Muir and recorded the conversation.
All I want you to do is just say, Katrina, I'll never ever ask you to give me another head job again.
I will never ever ask you to give me... Never ever ask you to give me a head job ever again.
Okay.
Ever.
All right. I'll leave it at that then.
Katrina then lodged an official sexual harassment complaint against Muir and received a written apology from him.
Before I put in my official letter of complaint, I thought that everyone was going to hate me within the community. And I went to somebody and I said, this is what I'm doing, and I know that people probably aren't going to look very fondly at me. But I just needed at least one person to say to me that it's okay. And that's when I found out that I wasn't the only one. Yeah.
My name is Leanne Muir and I'm here to tell my story. I'm doing this for me, for healing and closure, so I can move forward with my life.
Leanne Muir is Wayne's niece.
I guess I looked up to him as a big brother, I looked up to him.
As a toddler, she went to live with his family in Ballarat.
I was 2 years old when I was taken from my mum and went to live with my nan Myrtle. Oh, everyone would go there, all aunties, uncles, cousins, big close. I thought we were a big close-knit family, yeah.
Wayne Muir is the youngest of 9 children to Myrtle Muir, the Muir family matriarch, who throughout her life earned a powerful reputation in Ballarat as a fierce advocate for the rights and needs of Aboriginal people, particularly the young. Myrtle was a founding board member of Aboriginal Housing Victoria. The naming of a boardroom after her is just one of many honours she received. She also ran a big household, fostering 48 Aboriginal children during her life.
Myrtle wore the pants. Myrtle was the one who was in charge of that family. She was a very strong woman.
Aboriginal author Marie Munkara lived in Ballarat in the 80s and worked with Myrtle.
I think some people were afraid of her. Yeah, I think she had a really tough job. There were a lot of people in the community that would, didn't sort of see eye to eye with her. Yeah.
Not everyone in the Muir family got along with Myrtle either, like Wayne's older sister Jenny.
She got all these accolades but what for? She was the most nastiest, vindictive person I've ever come across.
She has a lot of respect in Ballarat.
Yeah, people are very fooled very easily. Yeah, she pulled the wool over their eyes, I tell you. They didn't live with her.
Family histories are complex, often buried under layers of time and the desire to forget. But some buried secrets are destined to resurface again.
I couldn't talk about it because I couldn't trust anyone to talk to, I guess. Yeah. Somehow I just dealt with it on my own.
Leanne Muir's memory of what happened on the last weekend of January 1987 has cast a shadow over her life. That weekend, Ballarat's Aboriginal community hosted a sports carnival.
The sports festival, carnival, it's something that we have every year.
Kathy Smith is a former partner of Wayne Muir's. She was at the cabaret night held in the middle of the weekend celebrations.
We had the cabaret on the Saturday night. We all went to the cabaret.
Wayne was 22 at the time, Leanne was 14.
Was she present there at the cabaret? Yeah, she was there, but she'd gone home. I don't know whether it was him that took her home or what. We never had an honest conversation about it, what had actually gone on that night.
It was a big night out for young Leanne. Starting with drinks at the pub next to where the cabaret was held.
I was allowed to go. I went with my auntie Barb and Wayne, and they were buying me alcohol at the Bluebell. That's when I got very intoxicated, so Barb took me back to her place and left me there.
Can you tell us what happened there?
Yeah, I was home alone. I vaguely remember bits and pieces of it.
Wayne had, disappeared for an hour and a half, didn't know where he was, didn't know what's going on.
The next day I was still drunk, but Wayne had broken in and raped me. The next day Barb and that come home and she saw the window broken in the other room and asked what happened, and I told her. She freaked out. She took me around back home to Myrtle's, and from there they took me to the hospital to have a test done, and I spoke to a counsellor. It was horrible. It was a horrible experience.
What did you tell the counsellor and what happened?
That Wayne had broken in. And raped me.
Next day, woke up to knocking at the door, and it was Myrtle and I think Barb with her, Wayne's sister, saying that we got to go to the police station. Leanne was raped last night. That's what was said. And I don't remember how it came back to that the truth did come out that he did it. But I remember being up at Myrtle's place, and Myrtle said to Leanne that if my son goes to jail because of you, life won't be worth living, just belted her. She hit her in the face, and that happened a lot after that. She was like a scared little rabbit.
Ballarat Base Hospital records obtained by 7:30 confirm that Leanne Muir was admitted at 8:45 on that Sunday morning in January 1987, alleging that she had been sexually assaulted.
And at the hospital, after I spoke to the counsellor, Myrtle yelled at me and said, "What the hell have I said to them?" And she told me not to speak to them anymore, so I wasn't to see a counsellor after that.
Police were called to this house in Walker Street, Ballarat, the night the assault allegedly occurred. A neighbour called the police and told them he heard a noise and saw a man trying to gain entry. In a statement to police, the neighbour said,
"I observed a male person with dark hair wearing a yellow or creamy coloured shirt on top of the roof of the carport next door. There was a man on the roof thumping on the windows, yelling out, 'Let me in.'"
Wayne Muir was arrested and charged with rape, carnal knowledge of a minor aged between 10 to 16, and aggravated burglary. Wayne Muir's court appearance was written up in the Ballarat Courier on the 3rd of February 1987.
It was alleged the man broke into a Walker Street house through a back window. The girl was in bed in the house, which was owned by her aunt.
Wayne Muir was bailed, and 3 months later, the charges were dropped.
Myrtle told me not to say anything, and in the end, it got thrown out of court.
Do you remember the reason? Did they say lack of evidence? Or?
Probably lack of evidence. Yep. And perhaps maybe my statement's changing because Myrtle told me to.
Kathy Smith was in court the day Leanne was called to give evidence.
Leanne got up and she just could not speak. She was just too scared to speak.
You're always disappointed when you realise somebody who's accused of a matter walks away scot-free.
When you don't think they should have?
Oh, you wouldn't lay charges unless you were satisfied that there's sufficient evidence to put him in that circumstance.
Back in 1987, Peter Ewer was a 34-year-old Ballarat detective leading the investigation into the alleged rape of Leanne Muir. He knew Myrtle and her family well.
There's sufficient evidence at that time that we were able to detect to lay charges, and they were subsequently withdrawn or not carried on in court later on.
And why do you think that was?
I'd say family pressure, whether perceived or real, but family pressure.
So Leanne made an allegation but then withdrew it because she was pressured not to proceed?
It appears that way, yes.
If Myrtle didn't want the case to proceed, would the family obey?
More likely than not, yes.
When I was 16, Wayne was abusing me again. I started doing a modelling course, and Wayne would pick and drop me off from there. But before he'd bring me home, he'd take me up to the Black Hill Lookout in his car, and we'd have sex in the back of the car. There were moments when he asked me if I'd give him a blowjob. He got me a nice dress for graduation for that modelling course. One night he did come in my room, and I had a little dog in bed, and the dog started barking. Wayne's half naked, almost in bed with me, and Myrtle walks in the room, flicks the light on, sees him there, just looks, flicks the light off and turns out and walks away. And Wayne jumps up and runs out, and I don't know what he said to her, but she knew what he was doing, and nothing was said about it. So it hurts me the most that she knew and did nothing about it.
Marie Munkera was the Aboriginal liaison officer at Ballarat Base Hospital in the late 1980s. She visited the Muir home and spoke with Leanne.
Leanne approached me and she said that she had these issues with Wayne. She said that he'd been coming into her room at night and molesting her, forcing himself on her. She felt like she was in such a powerless position. And she'd said she'd mentioned it to Myrtle.
A few days later, Marie confronted Myrtle directly.
Myrtle said that it was rubbish, that it just didn't happen. She said she's just making it up. Wayne wouldn't do that. That was literally it, and she didn't want to talk about it. I completely believed Leanne.
So after a while I'd had enough of trying to protect myself. I couldn't talk about it.
In 1989, Leanne tried to take her own life in this Ballarat park.
So one day I was on my way to school and I stopped at the footy oval and I tried to take my life. So some ladies found me in the toilet block and called an ambulance, and I was raced to the hospital.
Wayne's older sister Jenny succeeded Marie Munkera as the Aboriginal liaison officer at the hospital. She was there when Leanne was admitted.
What did Leanne say to you in the hospital?
Well, Leanne just cried and she said to me, I said, you know, you can talk to me and tell me who had done it. And she said, Wayne. And I said, Wayne her? And she, you know, and she goes, Uncle Wayne. She told us that he had sexually abused her after the breakup of her modelling school. Yeah, and she was quite open and honest about that, but it's ruined her life. as into how her lifestyle ended up. It's very sad, but she's trying her best to rectify that now.
After her suicide attempt, Leanne was put on a bus to Adelaide to live with another uncle, Wayne's brother, the AFL legend Robbie Muir.
But Muir doesn't like that at all. And
it was a safe place for Leanne. There was no other safe places for Leanne to go, and the further away the better. And we were just trying to save her because she was very, very depressed, very into a lot of self-harm.
What did that feel like?
I felt confused, I was upset, I was angry. Yeah, I felt abandoned. My family turned their back on me in my time of need. Yeah.
My name's Luana Morgan, and I'm doing this to speak out.
Luana Morgan is now 31 years old. As a 2-year-old, she was fostered into the Muir clan by Wayne's sister Barbara. She was not directly related to Wayne, but growing up, she also called him uncle.
We're talking about my uncle, Wayne Muir. I used to stay at my uncle's house. He had sons, so we were all pretty close and same age, so we got along really well. So we stayed there. I stayed there one night.
At the time, Luana says she was 14 or 15 years old.
I felt someone touch my hand and put it onto a penis. And then I was in shock. I was scared. I'm thinking, oh, what is going on? And then I felt him rub my chest. And I'm like, hang on, this isn't right. And then his hand went down towards my pelvis area, and I just jumped up in a shock of thinking, oh my God, what have you done? Got off the bed as quick as I can. I think I even tried to run out of the room with no shoes on to just escape and run out the front door. But as I've opened the door, he's firmly shut the door again and closed it just with his hand, like a little bit of force, but not enough force to wake everybody up. And I was hysterical, I was crying, I was emotional, I was a wreck. Went into the little room and he said to me, you can't tell anyone, I will lose everyone. So I didn't say anything because I was scared.
The year Myrtle Muir died in 2009, Luana sought counselling about the alleged abuse at the Ballarat Centre Against Sexual Assault, known as CASA. CASA confirmed she went 3 times in relation to the impact of alleged childhood sexual assault and subsequent trauma.
So I did that, and then just ever since I just pushed it away because ultimately this is the only family I know. I don't have any other family. So.
How does that make you feel?
It crushes. Absolutely. I'm so scared of being abandoned. Yeah, it's just scary.
My name's Vicky Peart. I'd like to see Wayne accountable for what he's done.
Vicky Peart has worked for Ballarat's Aboriginal Co-op since the late 1990s. As part of that work, she was briefly left alone in an office with Wayne Muir.
As I was walking through to the kitchen area, he'd come up behind me and pinned my arms to and grabbed hold of my breasts. And I said, just get out. I was shocked. I've had a lot of respect for Wayne. Since then, I've got no respect for him at all. He didn't say anything. That was the thing. He did not say anything. No apology, no nothing. And then just let go, and as if nothing had happened. I was stunned. I was absolutely stunned.
Leanne Muir now lives in Brisbane. She still struggles with depression and substance abuse. During a troubled life, she's been homeless, been a sex worker, and spent time in jail for assaulting police while intoxicated. She's been unable to care for her own children.
I want my story to be told. What I've survived, what I've been through. I've been to hell and back because of that. Putrid person that's taken my inner self. I've hit rock bottom, addiction to alcohol, drugs. I got married and had children, but I was taught to love in the wrong way.
Wayne Muir's older sister Jenny fondly remembers Leanne before the alleged abuse began.
She was just beautiful. She was a happy-go-lucky, bubbly little girl, you know, that craved for attention and she never ever got. But that's just the makeup of the grandmother. She just didn't really care. She never ever cared for Leanne.
7:30 has approached Wayne Muir for an interview to respond to the allegations against him, but he declined. Excuse me, Mr. Muir. Jeff Thompson from 7:30 at the ABC. Why won't you respond to these very serious allegations against you? Correspondence from his lawyers acknowledges that Wayne Muir did apologise to Katrina Beer, but calls the other allegations aired tonight false, defamatory, unsubstantiated, uncorroborated and utterly prurient. Some of those allegations are being investigated by police.
I was one of the lucky ones. And maybe I can use my strength